The environment matters a lot. A lot. Okay. This has been shown in experiments with rats, and they like in detail what's happening in their brains when they're not when there's nurture versus when there's no nurture or low nurture. The difference is massive and is transmitted intergenerationally. So maybe you want me to expand on these studies?
Absolutely.
So I'm talking about Michael Meaney's studies from McGill. He's the pioneer in this area. He's been doing it for 30 years, I think. And so one of the kind of studies they do is that they look at licking and grooming in rats. So licking and grooming is their nurture, right, for the rats. And they saw that some moms are higher licking and grooming and others are low licking and grooming. So they started looking at the differences, and they found that there are massive differences in the pups in their stress system, right?
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Birth Lounge podcast. All right, you guys, are you ready to literally geek out with me? But before I do that, I want to tell you about our brand new Birthing Your Big Ass Baby course. Now, this is for anyone out there who has been told, whether you're freshly pregnant or you're nearing the end of your pregnancy, that maybe your baby is measuring a little big. And I wanted to put this course out for a couple of different reasons. Number one, did you know that ACOG only recommends cesareans if a baby is estimated over 5,000 grams? That's 11 pounds. Do you even know anybody that has had an 11-pound baby? I've been a doula for 10 years and I have only seen one in my entire career. Plus, did you know that almost all the babies that are labeled quote unquote too big are actually born around 8 pounds at birth? This means that thousands of families in our country every single day are pressured into inductions and unnecessary surgeries that the evidence doesn't even support. So inside the Big Ass Baby course, I'm teaching you what the research actually says, straight from ACOG themselves and the AAP and the AAFP and Cochrane reviews, and it's all linked for you. So not only do you and your partner get to go through this information and education, but you can actually print it out and take it to your prenatal so that you can have these informed discussions with your provider and back up your decision with data to decline an induction that you don't want. Over the years, I have seen so many women be pressured into unnecessary interventions, yet with us by their side, meaning Tranquility by HeHe and inside the birth lounge, they are confidently able to say, no, I don't want this. And you want to know something really beautiful? They go on to have amazing births with very little tearing, quick pushing times, and very average size babies. I want to teach you how to ask better questions, how to confidently advocate for yourself, how to labor upright, and how to say no to the things that don't feel aligned with you. Big babies are not to be feared, but a system that pushes you into unnecessary interventions based on fears, not facts, is. If you're ready to stop second guessing your body and start walking into your prenatals with the data and the confidence, this is your sign. Head to thebirthlounge.com/big baby to join now. And right now we're still in the pre-sale period, even though the course has fully launched. Right now you can take advantage of our pre-sale launch price of just $99. So head to thebirthlounge.com/big baby and join now. See you there. All right, time to geek out, time to geek out, time to geek out. You guys, if you didn't know this about me, I have a master's degree in human development and family studies, which means that everything I do, every perspective that I bring to the table, everything that I teach, I'm looking at it through a lens of development, not only your baby's development or the development of your pregnancy or how things impact your individual body, but deeper than that, on more of a holistic level of how is this going to impact your family, your nuclear family, and what will those ripple effects look like, not only now, but in years to come. Today's episode is one that I get to fully dive into with these different perspectives that I have, but also like really allow my brain to run free. One other thing you may not know about me is I actually wrote one of my thesis on attachment styles with moms and babies when I was in grad school, and it is still to date one of the things I am most proud of, and it is something that I rely on all the time. If you don't know anything about attachment style, there are four main attachment styles that can occur between mother and baby, but it's not just between mom and baby. These young children are going to have attachment styles with every close caregiver in their life. So, including their dad or any other primary caregiver, like a nanny or their grandparents or childcare workers. These attachment styles include secure attachment, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and disorganized attachment. Now, the attachment that we have with our parents and our primary caregivers are not only going to impact us in childhood, but they impact us all throughout our entire lives. And characteristics that we exhibit in adulthood can be traced back to the attachment styles that we had as young children. So, for example, the one that we know the most about, and you probably have heard the most about, is secure attachment. And these are people who had healthy and balanced relationships with their parents. They had safety as a child growing up, and then they go on to be adults who are able to form secure attachment with their friends and their romantic partners in their life as adults. And they typically are very comfortable with intimacy, and they are independent and typically more successful. However, when we look at the other attachment styles, so anxious, avoidant, and disorganized, we see some adulthood characteristics like fear of abandonment with the anxiously attached child. They typically can be highly sensitive and even moody, and sometimes they're always seeking constant reassurance. With people who had avoidant attachment as a young child, you might notice that these adults are more emotionally distant and actually avoid deep emotional discussions, which can make it really hard for them to go on to have successful romantic relationships as an adult. And then finally, for children who have a lot of trauma in their childhood experience, they typically are described as having a disorganized attachment style, which we know can, as an adult, be presented as unpredictable behaviors. And these folks can struggle to remain in romantic relationships, but also struggle to hold down a job. Now, you can't really talk about attachment styles without talking about the nature versus nurture debate, which is really centered around the idea of which one impacts human development more. Is it primarily determined by genetics, which would be nature, or the environment in which you are raised, which would be nurture? So historically, this debate has really been centered around the idea that it is either or. But recently, we have come to understand that both are really crucial and they actually depend on one another. And so it's a really symbiotic relationship that nature and nurture really matter. In today's episode, I'm so excited to be getting to sit down with Dr. Rocio Zunini. Dr. Rocio is a neuroscientist and a mom of two. She's also the founder of Newborn Parents, which was born out of the fusion intersection of her two passions, the brain and the relationship between parents and their infants. Dr. Zunini is going to talk to us about profound brain changes that happen in the parental brain during pregnancy and child rearing. We're going to talk about brain plasticity, emotional regulation in parents, and how these things differ between males and females. We're also going to talk about so as the parent, how your nature versus nurture experience will impact your identity as a parent and therefore go on in a ripple effect to impact your child. We're also talking about how parents are, quote unquote, hardwired to respond to their baby's cues, plus what this might look like between the differences of moms versus dads. And then finally, I'm going to be asking her about the controversial idea of childcare outside of the home. So whether this is your first introduction to attachment styles and parent-child bonding, or you feel like you are well-versed in the topic, this episode is sure to teach you a thing or two. So without further ado, Dr. Zunini, welcome to the show.
Hello.
I'm so excited to have you. I was telling you before we started recording that this is a topic that I can really geek out on because of my own master's degree, my own educational background in human development and family studies. And I actually, when I was graduating with my master's, one of my thesis that I had to write was about mother-child bonding. And it is something that has just really stuck with me. And now that I am becoming a parent myself, it's something that's really on my mind, and I have found myself gravitating towards refreshing myself on how can I really create this deep bond with my baby from the day that they are born and really while they're still in the womb. And it's been really fun to be able to do that, and I can't wait to meet this baby on the outside. So I'm excited for this conversation, and before we get started, I want to lay the groundwork of what we mean by some definitions. So if we could talk about maybe define parent-child attachment, and then also neuroplasticity or brain plasticity, just so that everyone listening has this foundational understanding of what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay, so attachment is a concept developed in the 50s by John Bowlby. And, he just started observing children with their moms and then also mammals. And he put the dots together and okay, so babies really need to be attached. Children really need to be attached. And his whole theory was developed like that. And it's for survival. Because if you can think about the human baby, newborn, it's gonna die without somebody, right? So there is an attachment mechanism in place that is very much biological. And then, there's many things about attachment, types of attachment, and what it does to the brain and all of that. But, in a nutshell, that's it. It's something that we all have it and we need it for survival. And then the other thing was the plasticity of the parental brain. And so it turns out the parental brain is wired for that. Okay? It's exactly wired to provide attachment and to cover those attachment needs. And right after birth, even during pregnancy, the brain starts becoming very, very plastic in preparation for that, because there's going to be a lot of learning, right? And so it's becoming your brain now is becoming super plastic. I don't know if you notice any difference in yourself, but it's getting ready.
It certainly is. I certainly notice differences in myself. I mean, even from the things that are important to me, to the thoughts that I have, to changes in not necessarily my beliefs, but in the way that I want things done, I have noticed changes, and it has been something that's been on the forefront of not only my mind, but the conversations that I'm having with my husband about where are these thoughts coming from and why do I feel so strongly about X, Y, and Z now that I'm pregnant. And some of it is because I am refreshing myself on the human development piece and the attachment piece. Some of it is, oh yeah, I did forget that. I do want to incorporate that. But some of it is instinctual and I can't explain it. And I say as much. I just say, I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm telling you it is the right choice. And I would really appreciate if we could have a conversation about respecting that. So yeah, okay. Question that immediately popped into my head, and it's not really a question, it's just something that popped into my head from remembering going through my master's program, is the Bowlby study with the monkeys, where, one of the monkeys had their mom with them, and then one of them had this makeshift mother mom. And we saw this profound difference in the babies. Explain to our listeners what we found in that study. It's a landmark study. I mean, everyone in psychology knows it.
The Harlow experiment,
Yeah.
that was a major inspiration for him, actually, for both
Mm-hmm.
all those studies, because they were like, again, just solidifying his direction. Because you gotta remember, like, his ideas were considered radical and
Mm.
dangerous. People were like, what are you talking about? He was considered, yeah, if you read his biography, I really admire him because he went really against the grain. And Harry Harlow's experiment was one of those studies that, kept him going. And so what they found in those studies is that monkeys were, I think they were assigned to like a wired mom, like a fake mom.
Yep.
And one had a Velcro for cuddling, not Velcro, but
Felt. Mm-hmm.
felt for cuddling.
Yeah.
The one had like just milk, like a bottle of milk that they can go drink from. And the monkeys spend most of the time with the felt for soothing, for contact, for like they were being co-regulated by the felt in the fake moms. And back then the theory was that it was all about feeding. Babies just cry because of food and they got attached to mom because of nutrition only. And that proved that no, that's not the case.
That we actually do need that really close contact. We need that cuddling. That's why skin to skin is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So when we think about that close contact, when we compare that to the US culture where we are today in 2025, and most children are cared for outside of the home immediately after birth, immediate being sometimes you get 2 weeks, sometimes you get 6 weeks, sometimes you get 12 weeks. Not a lot of us get 4 to 6 months. Nobody gets a year. What is that doing to our bond between us and our babies?
Hmm. Well, this is a tough question because also it can be very painful to hear this, but
Totally.
that's just going against the order of nature. And this attachment is always is also for the parent. So your brain needs that input of being with your baby to wire to get prime by being with the baby, because when you are with the baby, the oxytocin system gets activated and that primes you for the caregiving behavior. And so when that's missing largely from day to day to day to day, you're gonna love your child. That's unquestionable. But I'm talking here about something deeper, something inside of you that is like the bond and gets you to know your baby, rely on your intuition, see your baby exactly for who he is, and be able to meet those needs because your caregiving circuitry is being activated and primed by being with the baby. I don't know if
Mm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think, I guess I want to start by saying the painful piece is so real, right? But a lot of that is out of our control. If
Yes.
you have to return to work because you have to have money, there's not much you can do about that. If you are a single mom and you don't have anyone to help care for your kids and you have to make money for your family, again, that's out of our control. There's so many things in our country that aren't set up to properly support parent-child bonding or to properly support this attachment between parent and children. And I do want to recognize that it's largely not our fault. But there is something to be said about parents knowing that out of the home childcare, regardless of whether it's your fault or not that you choose that, it does impact the attachment that we have with our children. If that's our only option, which for many families it is, are there things that we can counterbalance it with to help improve that attachment since we're having to make such a hard decision of out of home childcare?
Absolutely. So you are gonna spend time with your baby. It's not like you're not gonna see your baby for weeks on end, right? So those times spent with the baby, need to really be mindful,
Hmm.
conscious, So you gotta go to work all day, come home, and if your baby is a month old, do skin to skin for hours, and cook with your baby on you, carry your baby. That's gonna do it. That's gonna sleep in close proximity, right? That's a time where we are with our baby. We have the opportunity to be with our babies if we work long days. And that's a lot of hours. And that's doing something. That's also, your brain synchronized when you sleep near to each other. Your baby can smell you. Your baby can sense your presence. So attachment is still present at night too, or during sleep. So those are ways. Just, yeah, create those moments when you're with the baby.
And stay off your phone, right? So, like, really genuinely be present with your baby. And I think a lot of people think, like, oh, well, they're just a baby. They don't really know the difference. But the data shows they do. They absolutely know when you are not showing up fully present with them and when you're distracted and when they have only half of your attention and when you're scrolling.
100%. But this is an easy experiment. Just do it. Just do have your baby. Let's say your baby's 3 months, and have a little conversation with your baby. Eye gaze, look at each other, and coo back and forth. And then stop doing it and scroll your phone. See what your baby does.
Yeah. Okay, you're talking about cooing with your baby, which I think can feel really uncomfortable to a lot of adults to kind of retreat back to that baby-like state. But that's a way to engage a baby that doesn't have quote unquote what we typically think about as verbal skills yet, although we know those are verbal skills. That is your baby's expressive language, the coos and the ahs and the shrieks. Tell us a little bit more about how we can engage our tiniest babies that don't yet have a language model that we're particularly used to.
Okay, so this is something that comes very instinctive actually for us humans if we don't think too much. All of us start using this high pitch, longer, hi baby. This is universal. It's called motherese, it's called child directed speech. We do it, and it's been shown that babies prefer that. So just do what you like, just don't think too much. Just talk to your baby. You can even tell your baby about your day, talk about adult things like that you think your baby's not gonna understand. But it's all about the nonverbal.
Hmm.
They are masters at picking up your nonverbal language, your tone of voice, your gestures, your gaze. So that's the real connection there.
And you're transferring a lot to your baby in that time, right? Like you are improving their expressive language, you're improving their receptive language, you're even imprinting a little bit of emotional regulation on them. Talk to us a little bit about how our own emotional regulation impacts our baby and their brain development.
This is a big subject. Where do I start? So, babies are born very immature. They absolutely cannot regulate. Like, if they're in a high stress state, they're not able to calm down by themselves. They need a mature brain, a mature nervous system, and that's us. So that's one way. And then when they are regulated and happy, we also are there to have a little conversation, like we were just saying. And that's as well regulating because it will amplify feelings like joy. The baby doesn't know what joy is, but it has sensations, right? In his body. So joy, delight, all of those things are like also part of regulation. And we have to take care of ourselves because it's contagious. It's like if we have to dysregulate it, that's contagious for the baby. So it's very important for us to, like I always say, this is the time to actually start seriously investigating your nervous system, awareness of your patterns, and what can you do about it. There are so many ways that we can take care of our nervous system, and this then is going to impact directly our baby's nervous system and
Like what?
development.
What are the things that we're doing to regulate our nervous system, especially if we haven't paid much attention to it until after our baby is born and now we have limited time, we're working on limited sleep, we pretty much are always with our baby. How are we regulating our nervous systems if this is something we have not laid too much of a foundation for before?
Hmm. There are many ways, but I like to focus first on, so there are practices that are called bottom up emotion regulation and then top down emotion regulation. I don't know if you heard about them.
No.
So bottom up is like when you're regulating your limbic system via your senses, anything that comes through your body, a massage, listening to music, playing music, singing, things like that. So you could, do some, like I said, create first awareness of what is it that you need. And you might need some help, from a coach or from a therapist, from a friend even that you trust, maybe an experienced mom, right? First create awareness of your needs, right? And then see what can you do. And you're with your baby. So I'm not talking about like taking an hour to do yoga, because that could be very unrealistic, right? But what are some micro moments that you can take? And also, what are some things that you can do with your baby? Maybe dancing, listening to a soothing song and dancing with your baby. That's very regulating, right? So things like that, I'm thinking.
Yeah, okay. And then what about the difference between males and females or moms and dads? Because these things must differ between the genders.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What exactly are you wanting to know?
All of it, everything that's in your brain.
Okay, let's see what I remember. Okay, the father's brain also goes through major neuroplasticity and major learning capacities, obviously. Like we as a species are made to care in an alloparental environment, not even in a nuclear family. We need more people taking care. So our brains as a species are designed to take care of babies. And but you, as a woman and like a mom, a pregnant mom and giving birth, that's gonna make your brain really, really plastic. All the hormones that go with labor, and it's like you're getting the highest shoot of oxytocin you're ever gonna get during labor, for example. And so your brain is getting really, really prime like that for caregiving. For the fathers, they're not gonna have that. They're not giving birth, they're not going through major hormonal changes. But their brains are plastic. And what research has shown is that during the immediate postpartum, they start already getting plastic, not during pregnancy, obviously, but yes, during immediate postpartum. So because they don't have these huge neurohormonal changes, it's even more important to them to spend time with their baby. It has been shown that their brains wire and connect as a function of time spent with baby. So again, here we go. Oh, they go to work after 2 days. It's a big problem for us in our society. And
Yeah,
I'm a big, yeah, that if the father and the mother can take time off, please do it if you have the finances to do it.
that is super problematic. And I also think about the repercussions of them working all day. And then by the time they get home, there is really no time for them to spend with young baby and young children because if you work until 7 or 7:30, that's bedtime. So there's not a lot of time Monday through Friday for you to actually spend and bond with your baby because of the work schedule that you might hold, right? And so your real time appears on the weekends. So for families who just have those weekends as a kind of a family unit, is it the same idea to just put your phone down, be present, spend a lot of time snuggling, do things that kind of light you up and bring you back as a family unit? Is that kind of the idea?
Absolutely. Yes. It will apply. What we said about mom being with baby applies to that too. Yeah.
Mm.
And if that is working long hours, then and they have the weekend, yes, that will be my advice.
And what about a family where one parent is really good with emotional regulation and has pretty good nervous system regulation, but one parent doesn't? What do we see as outcomes for that family, both for the adults and for the impacts of the child in those families?
Hmm. Well, for the adults as a couple, you mean? Or
Yeah, I just imagine that, the stress of having a baby on a couple must be really hard. So if you've been living as a couple and you've been making it work where one of you has good regulation and one of you doesn't, the likelihood is that you co-regulate together. But when you insert a baby into that dynamic, the one who is responsible for primarily co-regulating, meaning they're the one that has good nervous system regulation. I imagine that the baby then takes on that role of who now is drawn to that parent who has the good nervous system regulation. So, where does that leave the parent that doesn't have good nervous system regulation? Is it going to cause issues and tension between the two parents? Are we going to see almost a deficit in that relationship between the baby and the parent that doesn't have good nervous system regulation? Or is there a way, maybe, and is there a way that we can bring that family back as a unit without there being all of this tension and deficit?
yeah, that scenario that you're painting, I think is how it will go. Like I think, because the baby is the one that needs the co-regulation. So it might be taken away from the other partner and problems might start, right? And I don't know, but I will guess there's so many childhood stories there, childhood wounds, things like that. I personally will explore it with a psychotherapist and from inform that can look into that. Yeah.
Yeah, just helping that parent that doesn't have the nervous system regulation and the emotional intelligence maybe find some of that and be able to find the confidence to kind of self-reflect.
Exactly. And oh, this is the other thing I wanted to add. It's good to approach this subject if we're supporting a couple and we see this. It's good to do it from a place of, I don't know if empowerment is the right word, but we can tell them that this is a good time, an amazing time to be doing this, to be working on nervous system because of the plasticity and the learning capability, right? And the healing capacity from, say, if their childhood wounds or trauma from something. Now is the time. And so if we approach it from that angle rather than you need to do this because, or blaming or something like that, I think it could have a better chance of, coming together as a family, as you're mentioning.
So are you suggesting that in this time in postpartum, immediately postpartum, that we are almost more malleable, we're more susceptible to being able to make strides in neurological growth and personal growth? Yes.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm talking from personal experience as well, because I have two
Wow.
kids.
Yeah.
I'm not the same. I wouldn't even be here talking to you if I didn't have kids about this.
Mm.
And it's because of my kids that I was able to grow and look at wounds. Like I don't know any adult that had a perfect childhood. We all have things that our children are gonna make us look into that we're not conscious about it before.
Okay, y'all, you know how we're always on the search for clean brands that are going to be transparent with the ingredients and the things that they put in their products? Well, I finally have found one and I've been using their protein powder for the last 6, 7 months. And I have to say, I officially love them. I do. Just Ingredients is slowly becoming my go to place for so many things that I use in my daily life because I can see exactly what they put in their products. And there's no fillers, there's nothing, that we don't want, nothing undesirable, nothing that I can't pronounce. And I'm like, what is that? They have electrolytes. I mentioned the protein powders. They have magnesium. We know how important that is in pregnancy as well. Fish oil for people who are trying to conceive. And they actually just launched pancake and muffin mix, which I'm going to snag in my next order. And I just ordered bone broth, but I haven't had a chance to try it. Super excited for that. They also have beauty products if you have been looking to switch to a clean and minimal brand. Not only do I love Just Ingredients because they're so transparent, but I love their commitment to using real ingredients and encouraging their consumers to become educated on optimal health and wellness, how they can support their bodies and their minds, and how do you actually understand the products that are in your life and where you might want to swap out different things. I'll never be a gatekeeping girly, and I will always test out products before I share them with you guys because I want to make sure that what I'm recommending is an honest recommendation and you can trust that it will be safe with you and your family. If you want to check out Just Ingredients, go to justingredients.us. So not .com, justingredients.us, and you can use the savings code Tranquility by HeHe, HeHe, Tranquility by HeHe, to save 10% off of your first order. Nothing makes me happier than to help you get healthier, and this is one of the brands that I love and trust, so I wanted to share it with you. All right, bye. Okay, so you just brought up a really good point that I have been asking for many years to my own therapist and my close friends and just people that I rely on as confidants in my life is, do you think that everyone walks away from their childhood with some level of childhood trauma or wounds? Is it almost impossible to parent in a way that you don't leave some sort of scar on your children? Albeit some of us are scarred more than others, and I totally want to recognize that and hold space for the fact that like some of us have actually really bad childhoods. I don't want to gloss over that at all. But even the people who on the outside who appear as if they had the perfect family and they had the perfect childhood and now in adulthood they're very close with their parents. Do you think that even they have some scars and some wounds from childhood that their parents never realized or even intended to inflict on them?
Well, you're asking now for my opinion. I don't know anybody that has no wounds.
Hmm.
I really don't. But this is not like gloom and doom, it's just part of life. Wounds and trauma are part of life and they can be healed. And I'm not a perfect mom. I'm sure my kids are going to go to therapy as adults to explore something I don't even know about.
Yeah.
I just think it's part of life. Of
And it
course, what you're saying, some people had it really bad, so I don't want to gloss over that, but I don't know anybody that had the perfect childhood.
Yeah. It must play into our resilience, though. So, talk to us a little bit about resiliency because
Mhm.
some of it must be driven by the things that we experience, but then some of it must be personality or characteristic or something. Why are some of us more resilient? How come two people can go through the same
Mhm.
exact experience and one of us comes out and says, that sucked. I learned from it. Here's how I'm going to use it to propel and accelerate my life, while the other person says, that sucks. I'm going to be a victim. I'm going to make it part of my identity, and I'm not going to be able to move forward through this experience. And they both experience the same exact thing.
Mm. Have you heard of the orchid genes or orchid?
No.
So that's like what you're talking about. This is research by Thomas Boyce, and he has done research on the stress system and exactly that question. Why are some kids just fine and others with a little thing they just are so traumatized? And he discovered that there is like a difference in makeup in the nervous system. Like the orchid child is highly sensitive to the environment, highly sensitive to the environment. So things that another child might have been okay is not okay for an orchid child. And the beautiful thing, though, is that if this kid has highly attuned parents and that these kids just get his needs met, they flourish. They just flourish. Yeah, they're like the highest EQ, like those, Mother Teresa, I don't know, to give you an example. But yeah, it's a very, if you have an orchid child, it can be, you know, an amazing thing for the world.
Okay, so you called it a gene, so it must be passed down from one or both of those parents. So does that mean orchid parents exist as well? Highly sensitive parents are more likely to have an orchid child?
I don't know because I'm not an expert in the subject, but
Mm-hmm.
there are genes that are called orchid genes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Thomas Boyce has a whole book that I'm always is in my list, but I didn't get to read it. But yeah, I would probably imagine that if there's genes, then they can be passed down. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that is incredible. One of the things that I really loved, well, I said that I wrote a thesis about it because I loved it so much. When someone chooses what their thesis is about, it's typically on a topic that they really are passionate about. And for me, it was that attachment. It was not only what are the different types of attachment, but how do we facilitate secure attachment in most children? So I'd love to dive into the idea of attachment and nature versus nurture. But before we dive too far into nature versus nurture, because that can be a complicated conversation and people have really big feelings about it, let's kind of lay out the different types of attachment. We have secure attachment, disorganized, anxious avoidant. What do people need to know about the different types of attachment when it comes to parent-child attachment?
So secure attachment is when if the child is in distress, then they go to mom and they're co-regulated. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about children never experiencing stress. It's about who they go to. And so you're acting as safe haven, is called. Like when your child comes to you crying and you co-regulate, that's safe haven. So that's like the cornerstone of secure attachment. And also a secure base from which to explore. There's two components, okay? Because it's not only about soothing, it's also about letting them explore. Because then if you don't let them explore, you're overprotecting, helicoptering, that's also bad for attachment. So those two things had to be taken into account. You're a secure base from where your child can explore, and also a safe haven. Your child can come to you with big feelings and stress. So yeah, that's secure. And insecure is when, one of those are missing or is inconsistent and things like that.
And your attachment style as a child to your parent impacts your attachment style later in life to
Yes.
your partner.
Yes, and also how you're gonna parent. There's been research, a lot of research on it. Yes, it's transmitted intergenerationally. It doesn't mean it's transmitted yes or yes, but there's higher likelihood that if you are insecurely attached, you will transmit that to your child through your parenting because that's what you know. And it's unconscious.
So, how would you go about breaking that cycle? How would you start to rewrite that narrative for yourself, especially if you know that you did not have a secure attachment, or maybe as an adult, you don't have a good relationship with your parent, or maybe you're even estranged and you don't have a relationship at all with your parent. So now you don't even have a role model of someone who can help you and you can rely on. How do you, as a new parent or even an expecting parent, go about rewriting this narrative for yourself and your family?
Hmm. Well, first you got to be made aware of. Typically, you might have come across a book, right, that pique your interest and your curiosity because these things are quite unconscious.
Yeah.
You're not know. And so, let's say you read the book. I'm looking at my dear colleague's book, The Nurture Revolution. I don't know if you know Greer Kirschenbaum. I'm looking. I work with her. So let's say you came across Greer's book, and that's gonna make you think a lot. And so that's the first step. It's gonna create awareness and wondering about your childhood. And from there, then, there's healing to do. Because also you can learn a lot of theory and scripts But because this is unconscious and automatic, you are gonna repeat things that it was done to you. So yeah, it's very important to see a way to heal this, either with therapy or in a group program for moms. For example, what's it called? The Circle of Security program. Are you aware of the Circle of Security? That's a wonderful program that has been shown that the attachment in the kids does change before and after. So that's one example. And I know that I haven't done the program, but I know that they, for example, I think they watch videos of the interactions with the kids and they are made aware of these things that are unconscious in a very compassionate way. So that's one way.
I think that compassion is really the important part, because when you start to look at your relationship with your own parents and you start to realize that you have the potential to, or you already have been perpetuating this type of attachment within your own family, it can feel really hard. There's often shame and guilt and embarrassment and just a lot of big feelings that come up because you realize a lot about yourself, but also your childhood and your home life as a child that maybe you've never confronted before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that this is why it's very important that if you do go to a therapist or in a program, that they have the capacity to hold space for you in a compassionate way is the most important quality you have to look for. Like if you go to a psychotherapist that makes you feel guilty or ashamed, then that's not the right psychotherapist. And this is now bringing to mind a conversation I often have with Greer or with colleagues, and there are I see it quite often that there are therapists there that have not healed their own childhood wounds and are transferring it into their work, all project.
We see the same thing with doulas and nurses and OBGYNs and midwives who either came into the work with their own traumas and didn't take the time to heal, or through their career, they have been traumatized and have been exposed to certain situations and experiences and stresses that traumatize them. And instead of taking the time to heal from that, they then just, like you say, project it and perpetuate that harm.
Yeah, I see it all the time. So it's very important. Like if anyone is hearing me, to look for a psychotherapist or a program where the qualities are there of compassion and holding space for
Mhm.
you.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the idea of nurture versus nature. What
Mhm.
do we mean by those two terms?
But nature is sort of like genetics you're born with, right? And nurture is the environment. So there's this debate, right? What is both? There is tons of research, right, showing this debate is done is both. Okay, it's both. So I don't know what else I can tell you.
It's both, but does one matter more than the other, or is it truly a 50-50 split?
I don't know if there's a split, but I can tell you that the environment matters a lot. A lot. Okay. And this has been shown in experiments with rats, and they like in detail what's happening in their brains when when there's nurture versus when there's no nurture or low nurture. The difference is massive and it's transmitted intergenerationally. So maybe you want me to expand on these studies?
Absolutely.
So I'm talking about Michael Meaney's studies from McGill. He's the pioneer in this area. He's been doing it for 30 years, I think. And so one of the kind of studies they do is that they look at licking and grooming in rats. So licking and grooming is their nurture, right, for the rats. And they saw that some moms are higher licking and grooming and others are low licking and grooming. So they started looking at the differences and they found that there are massive differences in the pups in their stress system. Right? The ones that get the more licking and grooming, their stress system is regulated. They, as adults, I mean, They are regulated, they explore more the environment, they are less anxious. So that's behaviorally. Now they are able to go and look into their brains, and there are actually cellular changes in the neurons, in the brains. They are more fine-tuned to be able to to regulate their HPA axis, right? And there are so many changes that like, I could talk for hours, but changes in the hippocampus, changes in the amygdala, and yeah, and in the prefrontal cortex in all areas. And this is, you see this in adulthood. And then when they become moms, they are high licking and grooming to their pups. And so it goes, the intergenerational transmission of nurture.
And what are the long-term impacts on those pups other than just being quote unquote better moms? Do we see their stress levels throughout their life be, more regulated? Are we seeing them live longer? Are we seeing less incidences of maybe illness and sickness? I don't know if we even follow that in rats.
I don't know about the immune system. Probably, yes, there's less. I can't remember now. But yes, definitely the stress system is just a very good stress system, a very resilient stress system, where everything is fine-tuned. When there is stress, they have less cortisol, and then the HPA axis has a negative feedback loop, and that shuts down the stress response. That's faster too, that's more efficient, the brake to stop the stress. So the whole thing is better. They look at this at all levels, and it's like the whole thing is better comparing to less licking and grooming.
So those rats are able to return back to a normal state of being faster if they have this secure attachment by the licking and grooming, the high level of licking and grooming.
Yes, and even feel less stress when stressed as well. So the whole thing, less stress, come down faster, the whole thing. And then behaviorally, they're less anxious. So they look at anxiety in rats in exploration, for example. They put them in a novel environment and see what they do. And the ones that receive high licking and grooming are curious, they go and explore more, they're less scared compared to the low licking and grooming.
It reminds me of the studies of secure babies where when you put them in a new room and mom is sitting in a chair, the ones who are anxiously attached are not going to explore. They're not going to walk around. They're not going to touch the toys. They're not going to venture far from their mom. Where your secure attached babies, they are. But the interesting thing is they look back to mom to make sure she's still there and she looks safe and she feels safe. And they're looking for that check in to say, go ahead, you're good. I'm here. You're safe. Go explore. I'm here if you want to come back. And you sometimes see them come back to mom and then go back out to explore. And again, just like something that really stuck with me from my master's program is the way that if you are able to regulate yourself and be in close proximity, your child will innately begin to be confident in their environments, not only familiar environments, but unfamiliar ones as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But also, I just want to, if somebody's listening and they have a child that is not very exploratory, let's also remember that there is maybe your child is an orchid child.
Hmm.
Yeah, like we're not gonna know, but yeah, for sure, what you're describing, yeah, that's a secure attachment. But then also, as we are saying, nature nurture, there might be a genetic component as well. What I don't want people to do is just make a conclusion right away, just from one thing, right? Everything has to come into place to understand the child.
Sure, looking at the whole child, is there no way to determine whether your child has a secure attachment versus is an orchid child? So I guess what I'm hearing you say is you can have a child that has secure attachment and is an orchid child, so they will not be as exploratory as a child who is simply securely attached but is not an orchid child. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say because I don't want to alarm like moms if they're listening and their child is,
Totally.
because I do see these too in real life. Some kids are I think they're securely attached, but they're just less exploratory, let's say, or they need more time. They do become exploratory eventually, but they need more time.
So when it comes to the way that we quote unquote lick and groom our children, right? I think we do it very differently for girls and boys. And there's this idea, and I'm speaking primarily for the American culture, but little boys to get up, dust yourself off, don't cry, you're okay. Where little girls, oh, are you okay? Come here, let me kiss your boo boo, come cuddle with mommy. There's a period of time where that licking and grooming is appropriate for both genders. Whether you have a boy or a girl, we should be responding not only quickly, but appropriately and compassionately to our small children, regardless of if they are male or female, right?
Oh my God, yes, 100%. Yes. There's even some research showing that the boys need it more because they are more neurologically fragile.
Dive into that more. Tell us deeper.
This is research by Alan Shore, Dr. Alan Shore from, I think he's a UCLA. He has books, tons of books. You're gonna love him if you haven't heard from Alan Shore. And he has a theory where he says that infant males are more fragile neurologically because of the testosterone shot that they get in their brains to become males that makes them more fragile neurologically. And so they need more of this. Hmm.
So, at what age are we changing that to build these resilient children? At what age do we begin to encourage them to, it's okay, stand up, wipe yourself off, come here, I'll give you a hug, but then get back out there? Because what we don't want, obviously, is 15-year-olds who fall down and they start crying and they're like, I need my mommy. And you're like, okay, you're old enough now that you don't really need your mommy when you fall, you know? So, where is that line in the sand? Is it a developmental milestone and it's going to be individual for each child? Is there an age range that we're typically thinking this development will hit a peak and we will start to be able to, build a little bit more resilience? Does it change between female and male children?
I don't know if there is a change between male and female at some point, but in general, there is some research showing from labs that look at co-regulation. There is a point I think it's teenage twins or like just the beginning of adolescence, where they're in their brains, they are showing like they can do it. They are gonna seek less of co-regulation
Hmm.
comparing to childhood. It's like they rely less. That doesn't mean they don't rely on parents, but teenagers still need us. Even as adults, we need co-regulation, right? Sometimes,
Totally.
right? But I'm just trying to say that what I have seen in research is that there is a point where it seems like in the brains there are showing more self-regulation capacity in the teenage years compared to childhood. So we have all of childhood really to co-regulate. It's a long time,
Mm-hmm.
to 12 or something.
And when we look at, just because I just mentioned the American culture, but when we look at other cultures, let's say cultures that really value community and communal living and really, you know, still dig into that village feel, and they breastfeed for much longer than the American culture, and they wear older children. We're talking like 5, 6, 7 year olds. They're still wearing them close to their body, on their body. Are we seeing big differences in things like the neuroplasticity and our attachment and long-term health impacts for the adults and the children in those cultures?
I don't know. Actually, I'm not familiar with studies looking at comparing like that cross
Mm-hmm.
culture. Are you? Because I haven't.
No, that was a genuine question of, I just imagine that we must be seeing, I would imagine that we see, better bonding between those families. I would think that we saw less disease. I would think that we would see adults living longer. It just makes sense that innately your stress levels would be less, you have more help, you're living in a communal environment, you have that like village wisdom, right? In America, we have to pay for it. We have to get on Google. We have to search people in our area and we have to see if it's covered by insurance. If it's not, then there's a discussion of can I afford it? Am I going to have to cut this out of my budget so that I can gain access to this particular help or support? Where in cultures that is built into the culture, we must see immense benefits compared to what our country does.
I think you're guessing it right. Just because as a species, we were hunter-gatherers, we know that where we come from, really, and we're
Hmm.
missing a lot of those elements. But in those cultures have those elements, and so our brains evolve from that. And we do know that an alloparental community is better for
Mm.
to raising kids. I will guess yes that you will see all kinds of benefits. It's just that I don't think it has been done, these studies.
Now, this is a couple of times that you've mentioned the term alloparental. What does that mean?
So these are somebody else besides the biological parents that take care of your kid. So nannies will be an allo parent in our modern individualistic society where we don't live in an extended family. Your allo parents will be like if you're in an extended family and you live all close to each other, the allo parents will be near you. Nowadays, the nanny is an allo parent. The school your kids go to, the teachers can be allo. For me, I personally consider allo parents. My kids' teachers are allo parents, in my opinion, because they spend hours upon hours. And so for me, yeah, this is a whole nother topic, but if you have the opportunity to choose a nurturing school, a school that really sees your child and understands child development, please go for it.
Yeah, because they're literally going to be helping raise your children, especially if they spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's 40 hours a week with your children that they're parenting your child and you are not.
Exactly. So again, this is bringing me back to the point that you mentioned that it's so hard in the US, right? Moms have to go after a month to work. But hey, is there a possibility that you find a heart-centered, wise allo parent? That's going to make all the difference.
And what about grandparents? Are they allo parents, or because they are already playing the role of a grandparent, then they don't really double dip like that?
Yeah, there are allo parents too, for
Got
sure.
it. So anyone who's helping you raise your children in a large capacity is considered part of that kind of parenting circle with you.
Yeah, and it's important. It's not just about paying somebody and you go and live your, like, really consciously if you can. Like, I know that it's hard to find because we live in this society where nobody knows about brain development. Nobody knows about attachment. It makes me mad actually because we go to school for years and years and like the basic fundamental things are not taught, right? So anyways, if you can, please look for somebody that has this knowledge and has their heart open and it's just is there to truly take care of your baby.
Yeah, in a way that you would. It's going to be different because they're not you, but in a
Yeah,
way
yeah,
that you would.
exactly.
Okay, my final question revolves around, I think, adoptive parents, because we've done a lot of talking about the biology, the attachment between parents and babies, but biological babies. So, what about families who go through the adoption process? Is there an impact on attachment and bonding for children who have been adopted?
Yeah, there is some research on it. Let me see what I can share. For example, it has been shown that the earlier they're adopted, the better.
Okay.
So, before 2 years old, if this can be done before 2 years old, studies have shown a difference in the stress system. Okay. If it's after 2 years old, the stress system shows signs of trauma. So that's one study. Then what else I can tell you? In the parents, there are changes as well in their oxytocin levels. There are studies looking at foster parents, and they do find that if you're responsive to the child, your oxytocin levels are also higher. So if you're attuning to a child, your system is gonna be prime. Even if you didn't give birth, it's still you will change. Because again, we have all the circuitry because of the alloparenting element, right? We're all capable of. So our brain also changes if we adopt.
Do you really believe that all adults are wired to be a parent?
We have the circuitry, yes, but again, you need the experience. It's a relationship thing, right? Yeah.
That is so interesting. Oh my gosh. Dr. Zunini, thank you so much for being here with us today. This has been a really fascinating conversation and one that you mentioned. I don't think a lot of us get exposure to this type of stuff. It's easy for me to really nerd out on this conversation because I love it so much. I sought out a whole college degree on this type of education. And I just think that I've said this for many years, but if we could fix parent-child bonding, I think we would fix a lot of stuff in our world. I think we would fix our empathy problem, which is a lack of empathy. I think we would fix mental health. I think we would fix the way in which the world disregards mothers and children. I think that our divorce rates would go down. I think that depression and anxiety and suicide rates would drastically decrease. I just think that it all starts with attachment and bonding to your parent. And until we start to focus on teaching parents not only how to show up for their babies in order to facilitate this type of relationship, but also how to show up for themselves with grace and forgiveness and the capacity to make that growth, I just think we're doing a disservice to every single person on earth. And so I really want to thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And if people wanted to connect with you, learn more from you, hear more about what you're doing, how can they do that?
Yeah, so on my website, newbornparents.net, that I think you're gonna have it in the show notes.
We will.
And I also work with Dr. Greer Kirschemont. We have a professional certification that we're gonna open registration for. We have a free event as well that we will share with you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. You guys, if this is the first time that you are hearing about bonding and attachment, I am going to put some links of resources in the show notes for you. It's really fascinating, and it's never, ever too late to begin this work. Wherever you are in your parenting journey, wherever you are in your own growth and healing journey, you can start this work at any time. And it really, really will change your life. All right, you guys, thanks for showing up for us today. And thanks for hanging out. I always love hanging out with you guys. And I'll see y'all in the next episode. Be sure to follow Dr. Rocio on social media. And you can find me at Tranquility by HeHe and at the.birth.lounge. Until next time, head to your app store and download the Birth Lounge app for evidence-based childbirth education and data-driven postpartum support delivered straight to your phone. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I love hanging out with you, and it is an honor to be your go-to gal when it comes to preparing for your baby. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a 5-star review and tell others why they should be listening to the Birth Lounge podcast too. You deserve to have a birth that you love with a provider that values your autonomy and respects informed consent without all the trauma that you so commonly hear about on social media. New episodes air every Wednesday and Friday. Hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. I'm HeHe, and this is the Birth Lounge Podcast.